Welcome to New York. Welcome to the United Nations Secretariat, my dear brother Bankole.
Thank you so much, Cristina, for having me.
Today we are going to have a conversation interview around nexus, peace, security and development. I know that we share the same approach. Based on our recent conversation in Addis, we had the opportunity to discuss how more and more there is a need to address conflict, prevention, stability in Africa, identifying the root causes, and delivering stability through development. I have three simple questions, so to give you an opportunity to explain your views around the nexus, as well as the African Union's Commission's position on this issue. Again, welcome. With your permission, I will start with the first question. You have a very unique context. As the African Union's first Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, you also have a very strong background in development, which is an epic coincidence. What is, in your view, the importance of the peace, security, development nexus in Africa? And how does it figure into the AU's political affairs, peace and security approach?
I believe very strongly that the African Union, the Commission in particular, is now on the right track based on a balanced approach of the nexus, peace, security, and development. This approach is symbolized in the Agenda 2063 of the African Union, the Africa we want, that looks at 7 aspirations. And of course, the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So this correlation, these causal interlinkages will help us from the lens of looking at governance and conflict prevention, early warning being activated. We can see that the peace serves as the enabling environment, security as the enabling environment for investment, for poverty alleviation, for good practices in agriculture, for the blue economy to thrive, giving the whole gamut of the being of the African Union. Its transformation from the Organization of African Unity to the African Union, which is 60 years this year, is a mark for us to move forward on the nexus approach. And in 2022, October last year, the African Union mobilized a number of partners, including the UN in the UN system, and African financial institutions, African Development Bank and the African Export-Import Bank, to support this approach. And we received tremendous partnership moving forward. Going ahead, this nexus approach will not stop as a workshop or as a seminar. It's going around with 5 regional nexus projects to be selected jointly with our partners and moving forward. This approach has been endorsed by the African Union Peace and Security Council as a way to better understand the integrated capacity for our peace support operations, the need for us to be able to deliver on the Sustainable Development Agenda, the need for us to focus on early warning, early response, and early action. It is a game changer for us to see that nexus approach will help us look at the whole gamut of promoting a better, stable, and of course, developed Africa.
Thank you, thank you. So, then, the driver to deliver peace and security in Africa, to regain, again, higher levels of stability in Africa, so we can deliver sustainable development, is now, as we speak, an issue that drives the African Union Commission's interventions in Africa. Now, allow me, my dear brother Bankole, to go to one of the root causes of conflict in Africa. We all know you are from Nigeria and from Cape Verde. You are from a big nation. I'm from a small nation. As I used to say, Nigeria in West Africa, you are the big brother. You are the big brother. You know that one of the root causes of instability in Africa has been the absence of state, unfortunately. Usually, African states, they have been facing some problems in delivering social services and public goods, in occupying socio-economically the territory, leaving some vast areas, untapped areas, to non-state actors and terrorists. Can you give us how you, as the Commissioner of Political Affairs, Peace and Security, the African Union Commission, plans to support African states to be there, to be present? You remember in your office we discussed, for example, homegrown school feeding that goes beyond a hot meal. Homegrown school feeding as a peace and security tool. I would like to know your views on that.
No, thank you. The critical fact is that we cannot leave our landscape, we cannot leave the space of our member states, 55 of them, 54 of them in the United Nations, to non-state actors, armed groups that are running riot in many parts of our continent, from Libya to the Sahel to Somalia and now Mozambique. We have to build the capacity of member states. Yes, 60 years plus after independence, it looks unreal that we still have to talk about state capacity. But the state capacity we are looking for from the perspective of peace and security development nexus is security sector reform and governance. Security sector reform that is able to hold the state, which was done in the immediate post-independence era. This requires full cooperation with the international community, particularly in the United Nations. It includes law enforcement that is critical. It includes the right equipment, and it includes a whole of society approach. And this is what we are doing in the department currently, where we are capacitating and working with civil society. The AU is no longer shy to work with civil society. Civil society is a critical component of state building. Yes. And they are watchdogs to guarantee human rights, to guarantee the state delivery, to ensure that elections are free, fair, transparent, and credible. So the purpose of any state is that capacity that is solid and that is engaging for all members of the society. The youth, the women, the role of the women is critical in this. Now coming to your question. Home school feeding program. This has been demonstrated, as you know clearly, in Brazil as a success.
Yes.
That lifted millions out of poverty. Nigeria has also embraced that same policy under the leadership of His Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari. So a number of member states are doing the same. Nepal also has a program in this field because the essence of security that is holistic, the whole of society approach, must be based on one thing: food and nutrition security that guarantees that the future generation, the children who go to school, also have the opportunity to be well fed and therefore contribute positively to society. It has to be a full cycle where all actors must be in place. The security forces, the intelligence community, the role of the civil society, the role of women, the role of school teachers, the value chain to build a society that can contribute in the rural areas, in urban areas, and also promote the stabilization that we want on our continent. So in the African Union, we definitely endorse this approach because it fits into your first question, the nexus between peace, security, and development. We cannot lose sight of it, and we must continually work towards that whole of society approach, making sure that all stakeholders are engaged from school to the security forces to the intelligence community to make Africa a better place.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, my dear brother Bankole. And I would like to underscore that more and more African countries are embracing school feeding, homegrown school feeding. And a couple of weeks, I had a conversation with WFP, that is, of course, the champion of this program. And it's amazing, a recent data that they brought to the table, that school feeding in Africa, or school feeding programs in Africa, as we speak, are 80% financed with budget revenues, which means there is a clear political will and a clear recognition the huge potential of school feeding programs to build resilience. If you allocate 80% of, if you finance 80% of school feeding programs with your national revenues, this is a clear and strong commitment of the value of school feeding. My last question, my dear brother Bankole. We all know that Africa faces many challenges. There have been calls for the continents to focus on quick wins, on quick win actions that can be a multiplier effect across the goals. I'd like to know if you yourself, your department, have identified quick wins to support African countries to start delivering in a more sustainable way conflict prevention, peace building, sustainable development. What are the quick wins that we could say, 1, 2, 3, let's concentrate on that and deliver in a consistent way for the next 3 years?
Thank you so much. It's difficult to just package them as quick wins because the peace and security landscape is always unfolding.
Yes.
However, what we've done is that we realize that the low-hanging fruits rely on collaborative approach, the nexus approach that we've focused on, but looking at first knowledge exchange at the regional level. So we have come up with a program called IREC, Inter-Regional Knowledge Exchange for Early Warning and Conflict Prevention, where all the RECs, the intergovernmental bodies on our continent, with the AU, exchange regularly their experiences, their knowledge, the lessons learned, bad or good, in terms of addressing conflicts, in terms of addressing early warning, in terms of course, the denialism by many member states that everything is okay until the crisis becomes full-blown. So we are working to make sure, for example, on silencing the guns, to come together with the RECs, with our regional economic communities and regional mechanisms, 10 of them, and those that are affiliated to bring together the best way to achieve quick wins. It is essential, for example, that ECOWAS, that has been promoting peace enforcement, peace building, peacemaking in the last 2-3 decades, can learn a lot also from SADC, the Southern African Development Community, that is just facing its mission in Mozambique. So the cross-fertilization of ideas will be critical to making sure that our RECs are able, as first responders, to really tap into the quick wins that way. The second point we've done is to bring together a number of think tanks and do tanks. So we call it Network for Peace. Net as in the new network of think tanks for peace and security, whereby all our research institutes, our research centers on the African continent, in the university, higher centers of learning can come together and bring their ideas. Why is Al-Shabaab or Boko Haram more resilient? Why are they being able to survive for years? What else can the African Union do in terms of structured solutions to the problems to counter terrorism and violent extremism? So we are using these platforms, the IREC, the Net for Peace, as a multi-stakeholder approach. The nexus approach, bringing all stakeholders together to make sure that we collectively, the African Union cannot do it alone, the UN cannot do it alone. We have to collaborate and we have to work together to make sure that we defeat terrorism, violent extremism, or radicalization. So for us, it is critical that we believe and continue to work on all this. Most importantly, the quick wins must be anchored on smart partnerships. Partnerships that really relate to better financing, sustainable, predictable, flexible, for the African Union to be able to deploy quickly and address the challenges before they become full-blown.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time for this wonderful conversation. Thank you very much, my dear brother Bankole.
Thank you, Cristina, for having me.
A pleasure.
Thank you.